Welcome to Cine Here, where you come for all of your media needs. My name is Ray.
It's your boy, Nikki Tay.
And today, we are reviewing Harriet.
Directed by Cassie Lemon, starring Cynthia Erivo as Harriet Tubman. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I did not want to see this movie at all. You know, slavery movies, slavery-themed movies, I would say for the past, 5 years have always been kind of lackluster. Maybe even longer. The past 8 years.
I disagree.
You think so? I think they've been lackluster. I think the emotion that we typically should get from these movies just hasn't been there. The last really good slavery movie that I don't even particularly care for myself is probably 12 Years a Slave. But even then, it is a bit watered down, I think, for the purpose of a slavery movie. Other than, depicting someone's life like Harriet does, it should also be a visual representation of all of the wrongdoings we as African Americans experience, right? It should be a reminder to European Americans everywhere that this is something that occurred and you should not forget it, because we cannot grow as a society if we forget incidences like slavery. So Harriet, instantly, like we discussed, being PG-13 was a big turnoff. It's like, how can you really show, the behavior, the emotion, the effects of something so powerful as slavery already being PG-13? You take into account Hollywood's way of throwing in, random characters, over dramatizing certain scenes, new things that don't make it relevant to the story, and it just feels like a farce almost. It feels like an indecency to that person. But I'm here to say this film isn't as bad as most people have been saying. A lot of hate has been going on for this film. Is this movie good? No, absolutely not. But it's not as bad as one would think.
I would like to start off by saying I think this movie is something that everybody should watch, right? And the biggest reason is because, especially for black people, I think that we should know our history, right? And is this movie 100% historically accurate? No. But this movie is something worth seeing, and then once you get done, maybe also go and educate yourself on the person that is Harriet Tubman. She is one of the greatest black civil rights activists of all time, right? And it is a great thing that she got a movie, because she deserved a movie. She deserved a movie before a lot of other things got movies, right? And I'm glad that we have one. So I would say go watch it. Now, where this movie fails is the emotional connection that is needed for a movie involving the atrocities of slavery, right? And this movie didn't have that. And that's probably because of the PG-13 rating, and this movie not really digging into that aspect of slavery, right? And I know people, I guess people feel like it's kind of like an origin movie for a superhero, right? Like Batman. We've seen his parents get killed, 1,000 times. We've seen Uncle Ben die, with Spider-Man so many times we don't need to keep seeing it. But in the slavery movie, it is needed. It is always needed to let you know what was going on, right? And this movie didn't do that. They didn't give you enough of the tragedies that happened in the slavery times. You don't have to have a whole movie about it, but you do have to put it in there enough so that the people can watch it can see why Harriet Tubman is doing what she is doing. Why do she feel so compelled to free the slaves? Is it because of the small motive, in my personal opinion, in this movie? Or is it because of all the atrocities that she has actually seen? As viewers, we have seen with her and stripping her point to do what she did. This movie didn't do that. Her intentions to free the slaves, well, we all know, right, were good intentions. But in this movie, they didn't really push that point forward. And I think a movie like 12 Years a Slave did a good job in that. And that's why I think that movie is good. And I disagree with Nick on the past 5 years. That one was a good one. And I also think the Nat Turner movie did a good job as well at really, really pushing the negative things that was going on in slavery. And Nat Turner, with the audience seeing the atrocities of slavery, and he was so compelled to do something about it. And his motives in that movie was so much stronger than Harriet's motives, even though they probably seen the exact same thing in these two films.
To follow up with that, I want to say, answer the question, do I think people should see this movie? From a supporting black movies, absolutely always. In terms of going to see this movie expecting it to be good, no. This movie is not good. I want to make sure I make that distinction. If you want to know about Harriet, there are plenty of good documentaries. I have seen a ton. You know, Harriet Tubman is one of the people they force feed down your throat, and you don't learn about Nat Turner until you get to high school, and that's probably still researching on your own, right? Harriet Tubman is somebody that we have seen. You should know the history before you even see this movie. You don't need to see this movie to see the history. And this movie, personally, doesn't do a good job at giving you all the history. It gives you the cliff notes. This is Wikipedia one-on-one, 101 in terms of a movie, right? It's nothing special I'm getting. I'm not getting emotion. I'm not getting powerful acting. I'm getting an okay delivery of probably one of the most iconic people for civil rights. And for me, it just doesn't do justice to Harriet. Bottom line, I just don't feel like this was a Harriet movie. I feel like this is a slavery movie with somebody who was influential. It could be anybody's name on it. It could be fabricated completely, and they could say, yeah, they was kind of talking about Harriet. I wouldn't care. I would feel the same way. I feel like for Harriet to go this long without a movie, like you said, and then to get this movie, it feels like a letdown. And again, I mean, you named 12 Years a Slave, I have to say is a good movie, but again, I feel like all of these slave movies fall in the same just watered down kind of situation. Even Birth of a Nation, which was what you called out, that Turner movie, was good, but it just didn't go to that next level, especially I think for African Americans, where we want to see things on screen that will drive a bigger reaction. We have these movies that are coming out constantly reminding us, of slavery, of what happened. And then on the flip side of that, you turn on the news and African Americans are still being shot, It's like where's the change, Are movies gonna help motivate it? Well, maybe, if they actually deliver some solid points home. And Harriet is just not one that does that, unfortunately.
I would have to agree. The movie it didn't draw you in, right? Just like we haven't seen Harriet Tubman on the 20, we really didn't get to see Harriet Tubman in this movie. And I'll specify that earlier, so I don't want to harp on that same point. But what I would say is, regardless, I think it's still good to see black people fight, right? And I think that's what Birth of a Nation was so good at, right? Like to see that everybody wasn't just the slave, right? That some people took arms and tried to do something different. And that's where this movie is. It's in that space. It's not in a space where like, go see this movie because it's a great piece of cinema art that we have seen this year. No, I would just say go see this movie to maybe educate yourself on what she did if you didn't know. And then after you see this movie, go do more research on the character just so you can know about it.
Yeah, just skip the movie. Just do the research. That's all I'm saying. Like I'm just taking it a step further. Just do the research. Save your money. PBS has a great documentary for Harriet Tubman. And I'm not like, I don't know personally. I'm literally just guessing. Because I know more than likely they have a good documentary. The History Channel. I'm just throwing out reputable sources to get better content than what we just paid for. And then in terms of, biopics, this doesn't even come close to some of the films, right? You think about Ray, you think about The Temptations, you think about Why Do Fools Fall in Love, right? And it's not even getting close to being as entertaining as any of those films. So truly, this is to teach me about somebody who I've been hearing about since elementary school, who everybody has been hearing about since elementary school. Poor job at that. Poor job at not giving me more interesting facts, more memorable moments, and just a movie that I could say, I would definitely want to see that again. I would rather sit through both parts of Roots than go back and ever watch this film. In closing, for me, Harriet just does not have a lot of good points about this film. For me, I partially feel like it's kind of that political thing at play, where slavery movies always get kind of washed down and we never get to see the raw truth, of slavery, all that emotion that could be displayed in this movie. I just do not feel it. And I don't want to say it's because Cynthia Erivo didn't have, the capability to fill the big shoes of Harriet Tubman. We've seen her in 2 previous movies last year, Widows and Bad Times at the El Royale, which we also reviewed. Check out that review. She's done The Color Purple on Broadway, so we know she has range, right? And so her paired with the director, Casey Lemons, who's directed movies like Eve's Bayou with Samuel Jackson and Lynn Whitfield, Talk to Me with Don Cheadle and Chiwetel Ejiofor. This was like the perfect storm, of somebody who's on the up and coming who could play Harriet with a director that can give that, black credibility and crafting a movie that's very intentional for us. And at the end, it just didn't feel like it was for me. It didn't feel like it was for anybody. It felt like it was a poor excuse to paint Harriet in this nice, perfectly wrapped picture to say, here you go, here's a movie that glosses over, like lightens the effects of slavery. I never felt anything in this film, and for me, it's at a 5.1 because of that. And really, the 0.1 is, to your point, only there for you if you really want to watch it. If you want a 2-hour cinematic history lesson that you get basically all through elementary school about Harriet Tubman, here is your chance to watch that on the big screen and feel nothing at the end of it.
I think the biggest thing that this movie could have done a lot better and would have made this movie not only more emotional, but also gave us a better cinematic experience with Harriet Tubman being on the screen for the first time, is we got no real thrills in this movie, right? We had no suspenseful moments where Harriet Tubman almost got caught, or never,
I like that.
never none of these like moments where like, is she gonna make it? Like, we always knew she was gonna make it. At no point in the movie did we feel like she wasn't making it out of it. And we never had none of these really, really moments where I think the audience and everybody would have really been like, this is not how we want this to end, right? And with all that being said, as much as some of the things I do like in this movie, like Cynthia, like Nikki Tate already pointed out, she did a good job. And I think all of the actors, for the most part, did a good job. And there were fictitious characters in this movie, but when you make a movie, sometimes you got to do that to fill in the voids of history that you don't know. I will have to give this movie a 5.7. I think that this movie is worth watching just to see Harriet on the big screen. Is this movie going to be a blockbuster? No. Are you going to leave this movie feeling any kind of emotions like maybe you did in a movie like Amistad or 12 Years of Slavery? No, you won't see any of those in this movie. But you will see Harriet Tubman, and to me, I think that is important.
That completes the review of Harriet. I cannot stress to you guys how disappointed I am with this film. But like I said at the beginning, it's not as bad, I think, as people are making it seem. There are some benefits to watching it, but again, it's not something I would recommend. You got anything you want to add at the end?
Yeah, make sure you check out our Cynthia Erivo's Bad Time at the El Royale review. We will have a title card above, somewhere above our heads, you'll see it. Make sure you check that out as well.
Yeah, let us know how you feel about Harriet. Let us know how you feel about the acting. And let us know how you feel about past slavery movies. We named a few: 12 Years a Slave, Birth of a Nation, Django, I guess you could consider. Amistad, you said, I didn't even think about that. Roots, The Roots A, The Next Generation too. It's a lot of them. A lot of them are really good, really strong. And a lot of them just kind of fall by the wayside every time. Let us know which one's your favorite, or if you like any or you don't like any. Hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all of our reviewing content. And as always, don't forget, you seen it here. But they didn't see Harriet, 70 deep. She was in them trenches.